So it was a good sign for the Atlanta Braves that Ozzie Albies kind of came out of a little bit of a funk that he had had. Now, Ozzie was kind of one of the guys who was off to a slow start. Obviously, the Braves had a big weekend. Braves won all 3 games. Now the Braves are on a 6-game winning streak. They swept the Kansas City Royals. They swept the Cincinnati Reds. So far so good on this road trip where they swept the Kansas City, and the Kansas City Royals are not a very good team. Let's be honest, okay? The Royals are a dreadful team, but the Braves went in there and did what they had to do in a weird interleague series this early in the year. Braves went in, did what they had to do. But one of the encouraging signs, and the Braves scored a lot of runs over the weekend. They scored 10 runs on Friday. They scored 9 runs, excuse me, on Saturday, and scored 5 more yesterday. And Vaughn Grissom had the game-winning hit and drove in the game-winning run. So they found a way to, come back and win that game. But one of the good signs was Ozzie Albies over these last couple of games. He was 5 for 9 with a couple of runs scored, a double, a homer. He homered yesterday in the game, a homer, and 5 RBI. And literally, he rose his batting average from going into the game on Saturday. It was 214. By the time the weekend was finished, he was hitting 262. Now, his on base is still not very good, but certainly his slugging went up, his OPS went up, and things like that. But more importantly is that let's hope that this is a good sign for Ozzie, because as you have Matt Olson hitting in that number 2 spot, you want production still through the middle of your order, right? I mean, you want those 3, 4, 5 guys to be able to produce a lot of runs. And with Olson kind of in a non-traditional run producing role, and look, he's off to a great start, and Olson's batting the ball everywhere and just pounding it all around. The homers, everything. No arguments from what Matt Olson has given you, but certainly from your traditional run producing areas of your lineup, you wanted to kind of see more, right? Riley's had a really good start from batting average, but again, it's only been a couple of homers and 7 RBI. That was the same as what Orlando Arcia had to this point. But Ozzie, I think, is still really that key to their lineup. I still think that, and we talked about this before the start of the season, that I thought that he would have a big bounce back year and he would do some really good things for this club. But, it's been a little bit of a slow start. And he's been one of the guys that's gotten off to a slow start. But still, encouraging signs that the last couple of days in that game that he played so well, that he found a way to get things done. And last 2 days, in Saturday and Sunday, now let's hope that carries over, right? Let's hope that carries over. And again, 5 for 9, you don't expect that kind of pace, but certainly some better swings. Certainly you saw some of the power that he had, driving the ball, into the gaps, and obviously the home run yesterday. You saw that kind of power stroke back. And look, I love Ozzie Albies. Like I am an unabashed Ozzie Albies fan. I had said for years that everybody kept talking about, oh, well, Freddie Freeman's the most underrated player and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, Freddie Freeman's the best first baseman in Major League Baseball. He's not underrated. The guy who's underrated stands 60 feet to his right in Ozzie Albies. Nobody talks about Ozzie. Nobody talks about the production that he brings. And a couple of years ago, 30 homers, 100 runs, 100 driven in, right? I mean, he's the guy that isn't talked about enough. He's been one of the most productive offensive second baseman in the game, and nobody talks about him. So I've always been a big Ozzie fan. And look, he can steal bases. He can do just about everything. He plays really good defense. I love Ozzie. And the fact is that, I thought that one of the keys for keeping this lineup extended, right? Because I didn't know what Rosario or Ozuna or some of these other guys were going to bring to the Braves lineup. I didn't know what some of those guys were going to bring. We knew obviously Ronnie was off to, look, he's a linchpin piece. Olson, Riley, Darno, Sean Murphy, you expect those guys to perform. But I didn't know what Rosario, Ozuna, some of these other guys, even Arcia to a degree, what some of those guys would bring. Would Michael Harris have that sophomore slump or anything like that? So I was counting on the idea of Ozzie coming back, being healthy, and being a real key into what this lineup was going to do. And now that we're seeing him kind of get back in a little bit of form, this is all good signs. And look, Ozzie could be a regular 30 homer, 100 RBI, 100 run scored guy, 20 steal kind of guy. We talk about Ronnie in his 40-40. I don't think that there's any reason why that Ozzie Albies couldn't be a 30-30 type of guy, maybe at least 25-25, but there's no reason why Ozzie couldn't be at that 30-30. If Ronnie could be 40-40, I don't see a reason why Ozzie couldn't be 30-30. And that was kind of in the old days, that was the standard of 30 homers, 30 stolen bases. Then a lot of guys got into that category. Very few guys got in the 40-40. Ronnie can do that. Ozzie probably not in that kind of group of players, but certainly a 30-30 guy. And it's good to see that he had a big weekend getting back on track, 5 for 9 the last couple of days. We certainly hope that that carries over because, again, to keep this lineup as deep as you can with some of the struggles of the Rosarios and Ozuna and different things like that, obviously with d'Arnaud hurt, obviously with Michael Harris hurt, to keep that lineup as deep as you possibly can, you need Ozzie. You need Ozzie to figure it out and get it on track. You need Ozzie to have that big bounce back season. And obviously the Braves are battling way more injuries than what they wanted to. Obviously we talked about Ozuna last week that they need him to produce. They need him to come through and do something. Right now it's not happening. And I don't know if it's ever going to happen. I don't know that there's ever going to be a big sign from Marcell Ozuna that he's going to go on this hot streak. But certainly Ozzie is a guy who is capable of doing that. And obviously Ozzie is a guy that is a real linchpin in this lineup. You hope for him to get back on track. Hopefully the last couple of days were an encouraging sign as a bounce back, and hopefully he carries that momentum forward through the rest of the season. All right, we remind you to make Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery your first listen every day, but make sure when you listen that you leave us a comment. We're calling it our everydayer. So if you listen every day, go into the comment section of your favorite podcast or on YouTube and leave us a message that you are an everydayer. So we want to kind of find out who's our everyday listener. So we appreciate it. We appreciate the fact that you do listen in every day. But when you go in and listen, hit the subscribe button on our pages, but also leave us a message that you are an everyday listener to us.